Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wharton Tech Toks. I'm Steph, your host for today. And today we're joined by Jeff. Jeff Maggioncalda stepped into the role of CEO of Coursera 6 years ago, leading the charge to reimagine education in today's digital age. Coursera is an online learning platform that offers anyone access to online courses and degrees from leading universities and companies. Coursera boasts 136 million users worldwide and partners with over 300 universities and companies to bring flexible, job-relevant learning to those looking to build new skills and transform their lives. Jeff holds an MBA from Stanford's Graduate School of Business and has over 30 years of experience leading teams, previously serving as founding CEO at Financial Engines and as a consultant at McKinsey and Cornerstone Research. Hey, Jeff, where are you calling in from?
Hey, Steph. Yeah, I'm calling in from my home in Palo Alto, California, and it's wonderful to be with you.
Love it. Heard you travel a lot, so nice to hear that you're back at home.
Yeah, I think I have been to 30 countries in the last year as part of my job. So it's been exciting to move around the world and talk about and learn about the future of learning and work.
Amazing. Since joining Coursera in 2017 and leading its IPO in 2021, how has your role and focus areas as CEO changed over the years?
Well, I think that being a leader nowadays is very difficult because the world is changing so quickly. I've been a CEO for 27 years. I had my first job as CEO when I was 27 years old, and it was in 1996. I just graduated from the Stanford Business School. I was the first employee of a company called Financial Engines. It was one of the first fintech companies. And I'll tell you, back in the day, things just moved more slowly. The internet had really just come into being with the World Wide Web. If you can believe it, Netscape had just gone public when I was at the business school. And so that was the beginning of the internet, and cloud computing wasn't a thing yet. But things just move more slowly, and every year they move faster and faster. And then especially with the pandemic and now with generative AI, the pace of change is accelerated even faster. So leaders have to be on their toes. And I'll tell you, I've never been working harder or adopting more of a growth mindset just to try to keep doing a reasonably good job in my role as CEO of Coursera.
For sure, the pace of innovation has just accelerated. And speaking of AI, we see a new headline about AI every few minutes. It's impacting essentially every industry, of course, including EdTech. Could you delve into specific ways Coursera is integrating AI technologies to enhance the learning experience? How does GenAI fit into your long-term strategic vision for redefining education?
Yeah, there's a number of things. So when we started really getting active with generative AI, it was in December of 2022. And then we started a project internally called Project Genesis, which was all about understanding the technology and the implications for our business. We have identified 5 focus areas at Coursera of how generative AI could really impact our business. The first one is language translations. A lot of people don't realize that the transformer technology that sits underneath ChatGPT that was invented by Google in 2017 is also really capable at improving the ability for machine learning translation. And since there are learners all around the globe who use Coursera, we have over 130 million learners who've registered, and most of the content is in English. We have been able to use this technology to translate 4,000 courses into 17 languages. And so now there's much greater global access to the experts in universities and in industry who have authored courses on Coursera. Number 1 is language translations. Number 2 is what we call Coach. And this is part of the learning experience where now built into every course automatically is a coach who's basically a personal tutor. It's like a learning assistant, and it's really cool. The learner can ask any question of Coach, and then Coach basically uses the material in the course to answer that learner's question. And if the learner asks a question that's not related to the course, it won't answer. But when it does answer, it's grounded in the authoritative content on Coursera from the expert instructor. So We're loving Coach. It's really cool. And there's three basic modes that Coach plays. There's the tutor mode where they're teaching you things. There's the career guidance mode where Coach is helping you think about what jobs are available, what careers you want to take, what skills might you need to be in those careers, and what courses might you need to take in order to learn those skills to get those jobs. We're really excited about Coach. The third is Course Builder. So this isn't so much on the learner side. This is on the instructor side. Generative AI is completely changing the way that you can conceive of a course, structure a course, outline a course, generate text, generate audio, generate video, edit video by editing text. It's really incredible. And we're building Course Builder to allow our customers and our partners to essentially build custom content much more rapidly by mixing and matching experts across institutions. So that's Course Builder. Then on the content side, we have Career Academy, which is something we had before, which basically helps somebody transition into a totally new career. So it assumes no college degree or any prior work experience, and you could learn the skills to move into a new career. We think there's going to be a lot of job dislocation, and so people are going to need to transfer into new careers. And so Career Academy will be a good part of that. And then the final piece, which we just launched a couple weeks ago, is Generative AI Academy, which is that everybody needs to learn how to use generative AI, including how to use it for tooling in software programming and graphics, but also how to use it for thinking and decision-making and communicating. So it's really a general purpose technology, and Generative AI Academy is designed to teach everybody the wide range of things that they need to know about this.
Awesome to hear about your key priorities in the AI space. I'd love to dig a little deeper into the launch of Coach, which I believe happened in April. Could you share some insights into the reception that you've gotten so far from both the learners and educators?
Yeah, so Coach has been really wonderful. I don't know how many technical details people want to go into here, but when we decided that we were going to build generative AI into Coursera, we decided that we did not want to charge an extra fee for it. We ended up building it initially on GPT 3.5 Turbo, running through Azure OpenAI services. And we decided as a strategy to make it a high volume capability and to really ground it in the course context. A lot of what this started with is understanding what are the capabilities of the underlying large language model, and then how do we need to build all the metadata around courses so that you can essentially do prompt engineering, so that you can build prompts that can provide the best answer to the learner's query. What we found is that people really like it. Interestingly, and I'm surprised, but people originally, when they first see it, they initially don't know what to do with it. They don't know what it is. And they'll click a button that asks a question and they'll get an answer. And then that's it. They won't necessarily engage with it. What we've started doing is what we call flipped interaction patterns, where when you click the button on Coach to say, give me practice questions for this quiz, it gives you the practice questions and then it tells you, answer the question right here and I'll give you feedback on it. Or if you say, is this course right for me? Rather than saying, well, the course is really good for these types of people and giving a generic answer, it instead says, well, tell me a little bit about yourself so I can tell you whether this is right for you. So we've really built into the prompts this engagement pattern to make it more interactive. But once people realize that they can interact with this thing and get ask personalized questions and get personalized answers that's grounded in the course content and from these experts, they really like it. It's going to be a whole new era of learning where it started before YouTube as passive learning, just watching a video. Coursera introduced active learning where you watch a video and then you take quizzes and you do reflections and you can get peer reviewed on certain things. And the third big area is going to be not active learning, but interactive learning. And that's really what Coach is about. We're still at the early stages, but it's been very positive and we've learned a lot and it's going to get better over time.
That's amazing. On the learner's side, essentially, are they able to click through different prompts to ask Coach? And or is there also a way for learners to input any question that they have to Coach?
Yeah, what we've realized, it's a lot like ChatGPT and Bing and Bard and others, where a lot of people kind of freeze if they just see a blanking cursor that says, ask me a question. So it's a combination. We've added buttons where we actually use GPT to read the transcript of a certain video that you're watching. And then we say to GPT, what interesting questions might a learner want to know about on this video? And then it generates the button. So the button is sitting right in front of the learner that says, do you want to know this? And if you click that button, it starts talking to you about that topic. But there's also a mode where you can click on Coach at any time and it pops up and says, what would you like to know? And you could ask it any question. It's both prompted with buttons that kind of give you an idea of a question you might want to ask, as well as just open-ended where you can bring up Coach in a pop-up window and you can ask anything you want. It will constrain the answer to be from among the Coursera content rather than going off to the internet, but you can work with it in both ways.
Got it. It's funny how using these tools is learning how to ask the right questions when there's so much information at your fingertips.
I think you're totally right, Steph. A lot of what I'm thinking as I use these, as I watch learners use these, is think about your life as a student. And you're sitting there with these professors who are deep experts in so many topics. And I think that so often the expertise is not even fully exploited because people don't really either know or want to ask the most interesting questions. So I think it's going to be one of these kinds of things where the most curious people are going to get the most value out of these types of capabilities.
Right. And the benefit of it being a technology versus a real person is that there's no bias. So you're not scared as a student to ask a quote unquote stupid question.
Yeah, I would say there might be certain biases inherent in the training. Honestly, on the language side, I think it's a lot less of an issue than on the image side, where you say, give me a picture of a professor and what does that person look like? But you're right. And we've heard a lot of learners say this, the fact that not only is Coach available all the time, but also it doesn't judge you. And it's not giving you the grade. And the idea that I can ask any dumb question I want. And when I get the answer, I can say, I don't understand that. Can you try again? I don't understand that. Can you try again? It'll just keep on trying to help you. And there is something pretty cool about that learning experience.
That's a really good point because I remember learning from tutors as a kid. And if they don't have the style that works for you, it's not effective. That's amazing to hear.
Yeah. And the next stage here is going to be multimodal generative AI models where it's not just text-based, where if someone asks a question, we could explain it to them, we could read it to them, and we could even have GPT illustrate the answer for them. And so I think the idea of multimodal generative AI models will also get to what you're saying, Steph, which is different people learn different ways. And maybe you don't understand a concept when it's explained to you in words, but you would understand that concept if it were explained to you with a picture.
Exactly. Yeah. Leading into different learning styles. That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is great news for students and learners. It's essentially making learning more accessible. It might be scary for any private tutors out there. Do you see this technology replacing that human interaction when it comes to learning or being a nice complement to it?
I think it'll be both. It'll certainly set a higher bar. The chief operating officer of IBM recently said in a TechCrunch article, AI might not replace managers, but managers using AI will replace managers who don't. And I think this is going to be true for almost every job role. So I'd say AI might not replace every tutor, but tutors using AI to help their students will definitely replace tutors who don't. So let's assume everybody's using AI to help augment their capabilities. The second thing I'd say is it's going to raise the standard for expected performance and excellence dramatically, whether that's in software engineering and the way that you write code, whether it's in the clarity of your thinking and decision-making as you present it to an executive. Expectations are going to be your thinking is really sharp. The articulation of your thinking is super clear. If you're a tutor, it will be hyper-personalized. It will be available all the time. It will never get tired. It will be a lot less expensive. Even if tutors don't go away, and I don't think that they will, it's going to be a much, much more valuable tutoring experience. And I do think, generally speaking, a simple way to think about what elements will not be replaced by computers and AI, I personally think that we're going to move to what I call the experience economy, where the Industrial Revolution kind of commoditized mechanical labor. Machines could do that better than humans. I think what AI is going to do is kind of commoditize cognitive labor, even pretty sophisticated cognitive acts. But what I think it will not do so well is replace human experiences. As it relates to a tutor, I think a lot of the actual tutoring might be done by AI, but what the person will do will listen to you, care for you, help you set goals. And a big part of it is help you feel accountable for meeting those goals. So if you know that you're meeting with your tutor and you're supposed to have this homework or assignment done, I think that the accountability to a human being is much larger than the accountability to an AI algorithm. So I think that a lot of that, and also just the empathy and the support that a human can give another human, is not something you're going to get as well from generative AI. I think a lot of jobs won't necessarily go away, but the cognitive element of those jobs, honestly, I think is going to be taken on largely by algorithms.
In recent years, we've seen platforms like YouTube and TikTok popularizing the microlearning trend. And microlearning offers bite-sized, but still really highly engaging educational content. How do you see these trends influencing or complementing Coursera's approach to online education?
I might have a little bit of a contrarian view on this because I believe that bite-sized content is great and it's very entertaining and it's very engaging. Mostly it's funny. But when you really need to learn something and you need to learn it deeply, watching thousands of little teeny microclips is not going to teach you the deeper conceptual understanding of something. If you had to learn music theory, or if you had to learn mathematics, like algebra, or if you had to learn systems architecture, I don't think that that is going to be learned entirely by watching 10-second videos. I do think that 10-second videos will help you get quick ideas on something. I think they might engage you to want to learn something. They might be interstitial to help you keep on learning something, but they will not replace the fundamental pedagogy of having to really think hard about certain things. Similar to social media and books, I still read books. And the reason I read books is because the author who wrote the book is generally, if not an expert, someone who really, really has thought about this. They've thought long and hard about this. And it's not just them. There's an editor and there's a publishing company and there's a lot of people really making sure that that is high quality thinking that is articulated well. I still watch video clips here and there. I watch the news, but I don't really learn a lot from the news. I like to do both. I like to read deeper, longer articles and books on things. And then when I watch the shorter things, it helps just sort of reinforce or challenge my deeper conceptual understanding. I think TikTok and these other forms are important. We've launched clips, which are short 5 to 10 minute videos that are a part of a course. But ultimately, I think that you want both. You want the deeper, more complete conceptual understanding of something and that more quick, engaging, tactical way of getting new ideas and testing ideas.
I would have to agree. I think when I scroll through videos on TikTok or Instagram, it intrigues me about a topic and I might feel emotionally that I'm learning a lot about it, but I struggle to retain that information maybe a day later.
Yeah, and there's something that's really important, a notion in learning science called far transfer. Far transfer is the ability to take something that you've learned in one context and transfer it to be applicable and relevant to solving problems in another context. And generally speaking, the elements of far transfer happen when you don't learn the specific tactical thing, you learn the deeper conceptual thing that is generalized and not so specific. When you engage on shorter bite-sized things, it's usually that surface level thing that is harder to transfer to some other context. And so I find that the deeper thing is really valuable for transfer, but those shorter things are easy for you to kind of say, oh, how might this deeper concept transfer over to this other domain?
Mm-hmm. When it comes to being a competitive candidate in today's job market, it seems like there's two different ways of thinking. One is that you should have breadth and you should be a jack of all trades. The other is that you should specialize. It seems like you fall in that second camp. What are your thoughts?
I actually fall more in the prior camp. Someone once said, and I love this phrase, that you want students and employees actually to be broadly educated but specifically skilled. The half-life of skills that are job-specific and tool-specific is pretty short. jobs change and tools change. And that's why videos on YouTube are great. They can teach you how to trim a clip in Final Cut Pro. But you know what? Final Cut Pro is going to change, or you're going to learn a new tool, and then you have to learn it again. There's the deeper question of how do you assemble engaging narratives using a video format? And that's something that's going to be much more durable than those specific tools. When I went to college, I was an English major, and then I did quantitative economics. So I learned statistics and economics. And then I was an analyst and I learned spreadsheets, and then I programmed in databases. And then I went to the business school and worked at McKinsey. So I got to learn strategy. I really am a bit of a jack of all trades. And then I was very fortunate when I was in undergrad, I had a graphic arts business. So I learned a lot about design aesthetics. So learning how to read and write and give speeches and do analytics and display quantitative information visually to persuade people. These were all the things that I did before coming to Coursera. And I'll tell you, the kinds of employees that are the most exceptional I've seen are, number one, those who have great attitudes, who are really positive and energetic and passionate and great team players who communicate and collaborate and bring the best out of other people. And I'm not just saying this, this is really true. And then second, who are just really high horsepower. What do you mean high horsepower? They just understand stuff fast. And how does someone come to just understand stuff fast? Well, a lot of that is the training that they grew up with, how much they're paying attention, their current physical and mental state. But some people just can absorb information and process stuff really quickly. And that's wonderful. Then there's a question of, do they have the specific technical tools to contribute to a certain endeavor in ways that are specialized and unique? But what I've seen is that really sharp people who are inquisitive and agile thinkers and good communicators and great collaborators, they can pick up the latest skill pretty quickly. I would go for the raw athlete almost every day of the week. And as the world changes faster and faster, it's not going to be a particular skill that you learn that's going to be most valuable. It's going to be your fundamental capacity for agile thinking and good collaboration and communication.
Love it. I think those soft skills are definitely key. This segues nicely into our career section of the conversation. I think you've basically answered the question that I had prepared, which is, you mentioned in a previous interview that 3 key components of being a great CEO are strategy, team, and culture. What are some key characteristics in candidates that you look for in the hiring process to ensure a strong team and culture? Is there anything else you'd like to add to your response?
When I think about strategy, team, and culture, that's really the job of a CEO, is to create a successful business by having a clear and effective strategy and building a great team that reports to the CEO, and then having that trickle down to a culture of people who share the same values, who are passionate about the mission of the company, who are, for us, good, honest people, who are really hardworking and curious and lifelong learners, and are really willing to commit themselves to a level of excellence in the pursuit of helping people, helping create not only learning opportunities, but also economic and other life opportunities. So people who really buy into the mission and the vision of the company are really important. When I think about executives, I think about people who are going to Wharton and what might employers be looking for. When I think about executives, here are some of the traits that I look for. And these are explicit. I actually interview for these as I interview people at the higher levels. Number one, I would say clear, rigorous systems thinking and problem solving. This might be, what? Honestly, the job of a leader is to meet an unmet market opportunity by figuring out the needs of a customer that the company can uniquely serve and how to acquire those customers at low cost. I mean, at a very, very high level. But no one wrote the book on that. You're going to have to figure that out. Problem solving is incredibly important. And then if you want to build a company that can scale, you've got to be a systems thinker. And there's just a lot of people out there who are not systems thinkers, or they never went through the training, and that's just not the way they work. And there's a lot of people that will jump to action without really understanding the nature of the problem or even the objective. Good, rigorous analytical thinking is so, so valuable. The second trait I look for is urgent drive for impact with ownership for results. It might be fun to have a job, but the execs who really make a big difference are the ones who take it very personally to not just have a good strategy, but to actually deliver impact and results. And they assume personal accountability for that. They're like, I will make this happen. You can count on me. That ownership for results and that urgency to drive results is a really important trait that not everybody has. Third is collaborative creativity, problem solving, and execution. So the ability to do this with other people, to think through things and problem solve and to execute and to drive results with a group of people is really important. The fourth is strong leadership and management. And this includes certainly the interpersonal piece of it, but a lot of it too is what is your capacity to set clear strategies, hire good talent, create structures that are well-defined with clarity around roles and responsibilities, and design and implement processes that are highly efficient and effective and that can scale. A lot of people aren't so good at that. And then the final one, so I have 5, is adaptability and growth mindset. It's often the case that leaders of larger companies end up getting too comfortable with the way that they do things, and they kind of become a bit of a one-trick pony. One of the great things I think about younger leaders just starting out is they have a level of openness and agility to try new things that really serves a company well. Because if something's not working, you just got to try something different. And ideally, you have a hypothesis-driven approach to say, look, our hypothesis was this. We're testing it. It's not working. We need to iterate the hypothesis and test a new hypothesis as to how we're going to create real customer value for people.
Thanks so much for those insights. When it comes to your own leadership style, how do you define that? And how are you evolving your leadership style as Coursera continues to scale?
Yeah, my leadership style, I like to think that it's all those things I just mentioned. I definitely put a premium. Well, first of all, I try to stay focused on my job, which is strategy, team, culture, and just ensuring that the company is performing well. I can easily get distracted and do other things that I really enjoy, but frankly, that's other people's jobs. And part of being a good leader is understanding what your job is and isn't, because if you're not doing your job as a leader, you're doing somebody else's job. But the worst thing is, who's doing your job? A lot of being a leader, and this I had to learn. I would often do things because I enjoyed them, but it wasn't serving the company because I was spending time not doing the job that I needed to be doing as a CEO. But first, stay committed to your job as a leader. And then these traits, I think, are ones that I try to bring to the job. Clear, rigorous systems thinking and problem solving, really caring a lot about results, building a real team that collaborates, communicates, trusts each other, challenges each other, and is willing to adapt as needed. So I try to bring that to it. My personal development plan right now, I always have OKRs. Every 90 days, I have a new set of goals. I always am trying to commit myself to being better. I always feel like I know I can be better. I can always be better. And I feel like I have a duty to the company to try to be better every day than I was the day before. The key to that is feedback, is making sure that you're stretching yourself and getting feedback from people that you can trust, and then just committing to taking that feedback and trying to decide what you need to do better, and then practicing doing it better and getting feedback on whether that's working. There's a certain humility that I try to bring to my job, realizing I've always got to be learning and improving. And the best way to do that is getting feedback from people that you can trust.
When it comes to being a CEO, I think a key part of the job is knowing what to prioritize and what to not prioritize. What's your process to determining which projects to prioritize?
Great question. This is really where process becomes important. For the last 20 years or so, I have had certain core processes that I put in place. I did this at Financial Engines, and as soon as I got to Coursera, I did the same thing because I don't know how to run a business without these processes. One process is the financial set of processes of managing the money and setting budgets and forecasting growth and driving towards that. There's another set of processes around goal setting on a quarterly and annual basis, creating goals and plans and making sure that you've got the structures and people to execute on those. But a really important one that I think gets shortchanged when things get really urgent and tactical is the long-term strategy process. We have a process that we use at Coursera where every year we update our 3-year strategy. Every day, we have a 3-year strategy. It is a living strategy that is written down and it's articulated. And it has certain elements, including a landscape analysis, what are the key trends, opportunities and threats, strengths and weaknesses of our business model, an understanding of who our competitors are, how they are innovating, and how we can compete against them. It has a financial vision of where we think we're heading as a financial entity. And then it has how do we need to be most different 3 years from now? And what are the success factors that we need to prove to get there? So that's always there. And then once a year, we update it. We say, all right, we spend a few months actually, and usually there's like 6 or 7 1 or 2 hour meetings where we look at the strengths and weaknesses and we update those. We look at the external threats, we update those. We look at our competitors, we update those. We look at our financial model, we update those. We go through this whole process, we update it, and then we have a board offsite where I present the updated strategy to the board. What's really nice about this is it creates a lot of clarity for the team internally. It creates clarity and alignment with the board, which is harder than you might think, but really is incredibly important. And then what's nice is it answers your question. When a given opportunity comes up any day of the week, any week of the month, any month of the quarter, the first thing I think about is how well does this align with our 3-year strategy? Mm-hmm. It's just a great filter to make sure that all these different ideas that are coming at you can be tested and filtered against a coherent strategy that ideally is your path to future success.
When it comes to your shorter term goals and plans, are you as flexible with that as well, especially as you have to adapt to trends like AI?
Yeah, it's really a tricky one. And what I found is unless you have the processes to force a long-term visioning outlook, that almost always gets compromised by having your head down towards what's right in front of you. We look on 3 horizons. We look on a 3-year horizon. That's our 3-year strategy. OKRs. We have objectives and key results of what we want to achieve and the metrics we want to hit, financial and non-financial, over the next 3 years. Then we have a 1-year financial and operating plan. And that is something that also has OKRs. So what are the key metrics and the key objectives that we need to achieve within the next 12 months? And that happens on a calendar basis. That's not something we update every quarter. We do that once per year. But then every quarter, we have our quarterly objectives and key results and our quarterly business reviews. Generally speaking, I try not to do pivots and changes within a quarterly process. I try to wait until the quarter is done and then introduce a pivot or a change or a big adaptation in that 90-day cycle where you're reviewing how things went and you're setting your next 90 days goals. But that's where a lot of the quick pivoting happens. And then there are times too where when we finish the strategic process in April, we'll be like, wow, we've got to start getting on this earlier. And so we'll actually change our quarterly OKRs to start pointing more towards where we need to be going over a 3-year horizon.
Gotcha. As a Stanford GSB grad yourself, what advice do you have for MBA students as we start making career decisions and charting out our future career paths? I think this is a really interesting question as you've worn a lot of different hats. You've touched a lot of different industries from fintech to edtech, being an English major, studying computer science. So it's difficult being in our shoes right now, determining what our short-term goals are, what our long-term goals are. And it's easy also to get stuck in maybe that traditional MBA career path. So curious on your advice there.
Yeah, the first thing I will say is the prospects for all of you at Wharton are really, really good. Try not to stress too much about it because a certain level of stress is healthy, but too much stress is not healthy. And you want to be able to take risks and experiment and have some sense of joy and play in your life and in your career. So try not to take it too seriously. I would say, and this is going to sound a little bit odd, I would not have given this advice 5 years ago, but number one, stay healthy. Stay healthy and mostly stay mentally healthy. And that's easier said than done. There's a course on Coursera called Finding Purpose and Meaning in Your Life. And there's another course on Coursera called The Science of Well-Being. They're 2 of our most popular courses. But I think about the best work that someone can do. I mean, the inherent capabilities of all of you at Wharton are extraordinary. That's just true. Then the question becomes like an athlete. Okay, so you now have these incredible talents. How do you make sure that you're in top performing shape? The number one thing I would say is to be healthy and starting with mental health. And I would say for mental health, although I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I would start by surrounding yourself with people who love you and who you love. Take feedback from people that you trust and respect and ignore almost everybody else. Try not to watch all that social media stuff. Read books, read thoughtful pieces from people who are deep thinkers that you respect. Don't fill your mind with negativity and garbage. It really does create anxiety and depression and loneliness and isolation. Take care of your mental health. Because if you can come in really feeling good, you're just going to perform better in anything that you do. Then your physical health is, of course, highly related to that. And that's the basics, right? Sleep, eat, exercise. Those are three really good ones. And then if you surround yourself with people that love you and are supportive, you're a good way there. Then I would say be agile and be experimental and try to be really committed to what you're doing. I do think that there's a healthy conversation around work-life balance, but I will tell you personally, I have not had much because I don't really want it. I love my job. I just freaking love it. I love what I'm doing and I work all the hours of the day and I also spend time with my wife and my kids, but I just love it. So ideally find something that you really, really love doing so it doesn't feel like a job. It feels more like an adventure and you're fulfilling your curiosity. That is just sort of in line with work with people and on projects that you really like and be part of companies where you can truly grow, learn, and expand. And at the end of every night, feel a sense of purpose and a sense of pride that you did something that mattered and you made a good difference in the world.
Thanks so much for these really great reminders. I think it's easy to forget some of the core things of like mental health and exercise and stay healthy. So
yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah.
When it comes to professional growth, I think one key attribute that MBA students, and even if you're not an MBA student, one key trait that everyone is looking to build is influence. As a CEO yourself, how do you suggest that people tangibly practice and build this skill?
I think the notion of influence when you're not in a company is different than the notion of influence when you are in a company. And the question I would ask is, who are you trying to influence and why? I believe, at least in my career for 27 years as a CEO, I'll tell you who succeeds in companies that I run. People who perform really, really well and who have a really positive impact on the performance of other people in the company. The number one kind of influence that I think matters is how do you influence the business results and how do you influence your colleagues in producing good business results? You don't need to have blogs. You don't need to have a personal brand. You don't need to have any of that garbage. Just do a really, really good job. Take on the hardest problems, create real value for your customers and your business, and you're going to do extremely well. So that's what I would say. Influence your colleagues by performing really well. I really think it's almost that simple. I don't have any social media accounts. I might be a little old-fashioned and that might not be the smart thing. I'll say that. But the way that I got this job at Coursera was because Financial Engines was a big success. And the way that Financial Engines was a big success is I worked really, really hard and had a team that worked really, really hard. And we figured out how to create services and products for people that they really liked that competitors couldn't create. I mean, it's really basic. And as a CEO, sometimes the company says like, hey, I wish you had an Instagram account. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to direct so much influence to me. I want the company to be influential. So we have a company blog and my LinkedIn is basically run by the company because I spend all my time with customers, employees, and my family. I don't have time for everybody else other than doing these kinds of press events to talk about Coursera. But I think people worry too much about influence personally. And I think performance is going to be much more important than influence because performance is the way that you influence inside a company.
It's a great insight. And I think this is an example of how you have prioritized what you care about and then cut out all the other noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's move on to some rapid fire Q&A. First question, what's a non-negotiable that you have as part of your morning or night routine?
There isn't any. I thought you were going to say, what's the non-negotiable about hiring somebody or something like that? And that's when you have to be honest and respectful. If you are a liar or if you treat people poorly, I want nothing to do with you. Professionally, personally, or anything. But with respect to my routine, I was up to 5 a.m. the other morning doing some work. I don't have a lot of boundaries personally.
Love it. The flexibility is key.
Yeah.
Maybe flexibility is non-negotiable then.
Okay. Yeah. But there also are times where someone says you have to be there at this time, and you really do have to be there at this time. So I don't think there are non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm. What's the first job you ever had?
The first job that I ever had, the first thing I got paid for doing is selling toffee-covered peanuts for Y Indian guides. And my dad told me, and my brother, my younger brother, we were about 6 years old. He said, if you can sell a whole box of these toffee covered peanuts, I'll buy you both an ice cream sundae. And man, do we hustle, and we sold every one of those things. And there's not a dessert I remember better than that chocolate covered sundae that we had at Carrie's coffee shop a long time ago. So that was the first one. The second one was a paperboy. I used to deliver papers, and it was very old fashioned, right? I would put the bag over my shoulders and I'd fold up all the papers and I'd throw them onto the deck. And then every month I'd go and collect the money from everybody's door. It was quaint.
That's a great origin story. What's your favorite course on Coursera?
Learning how to learn from Barb Oakley. It's one of the top courses. Every year it's in the top 5 courses, and it's just a masterpiece. It basically teaches you how your brain works and how you can be a more effective learner.
Awesome. What's the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good one. I remember when I was in high school, it was a good piece of advice, but unfortunately, I don't know that I've really done a good job living by it, but I really believe it. I was a student body president at St. Ignatius College Prep, and I had never gotten a B, and I got a midterm in French, and I got a B on the midterm, and I was really upset with myself, and I was not going to get a B in the course. The principal of the school had heard about this and called me in, and he said, Jeff, we were pretty good friends. He said, Jeff, what's the deal? I mean, you just got a bad midterm grade. And I was really just upset about it. And he wrote down on a piece of paper, he said, the perfect is the enemy of the good. And for me, that's a piece of advice that resonates. I don't know if it's the most important. The most important, here's one that's a little bit more important. That's a good one, sort of more professionally. But when I married Anne, before I proposed to her, I went to a bar with her dad to ask his permission. And I told him I loved his daughter and all this. And he wasn't like, oh, that's great. He's like, all right, I got to tell you a few things. Number one, he said, she is going to be the most important thing in your life, even more important than your children, because your children are going to grow up and have their own families. So treat her as the center of your universe. I said, yes, sir. But then he said something else that really has made a huge difference in my life. He said, when you have children, they're going to change every single day. And when you wake up one day, they're not going to be the same person that they were the day before or the month or the year before. And if you miss that, you'll never get it back. You'll never get it back. And I'm going to start crying.
No.
There are very few things in life that you could regret. And the only things that I worry I might regret are things you can't undo. People will forgive you for almost every single mistake. But not seeing your children grow up is something you'll never get back. That was a good piece of advice.
I have no words. That's a really good note to end on. Thank you so much for your honest thoughts about Coursera, but also about life.
Yeah.
And I think that wraps up our time for today. So we really look forward to following Coursera's growth in the future. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks, Steph. Really enjoyed it.